This is a story about getting what you deserve. In 1969, this young singer named Gaynor Hopkins enters her first singing competition. Now, Gaynor doesn't win. She actually comes in second place. She loses to an accordion player, and her prize money for getting second is just £1. But she discovers that she loves singing. She's so excited by it that she realizes that's all she wants to do from now on. After that, she starts playing in pubs all over Wales, first as a backup singer and then as the lead singer of her own band called Imagination. And by this time, she's not going by her birth name, Gaynor Hopkins. She's actually chosen a stage name, Shireen Davis. There was already another singer in Wales named Mary Hopkin. In fact, Gaynor Hopkins had sung a Mary Hopkins song at that talent show. And a couple years later, she's singing at this club in Swansea called the Townsman Club when she's discovered by a talent scout, this guy named Roger Bell. He invites her to go to London to record a demo. So now Shireen Davis, she goes to London and she records this demo, but for a while nothing really happens with it. And then there's this songwriter named Ronnie Scott who tells the talent agent Roger Bell, you know what, bring back that Welsh girl, I got a song for her. The song he writes for her is a song called Lost in France. She actually changes her stage name again, and then Lost in France becomes a huge hit. It goes top 10 in the UK, it's a hit in America, and her career takes off. But she keeps having these stumbling blocks. Lost in France was a hit, but her debut album, The World Starts Tonight, is a flop. Then she had another single called It's a Heartache that was a huge hit. Then at one point she has to get surgery to remove nodules on her vocal cords, and her singing career could have been over. Instead, it made her already raspy voice even raspier and more unique, and it actually ends up being a good thing. But by the early 1980s, her career is not where she wants it to be. She's had some hits, but also a run of unsuccessful singles, and she doesn't really love her image. She's been kind of pigeonholed as a pop singer, but she wants to do something more rock and roll. So in 1981, when her original contract with RCA is up, she chooses not to re-sign with them. She signs a deal with CBS Columbia. They tell her she can have her pick of producers to work on for her first album with them. And there is one person that she has in mind. She had seen the singer Meatloaf perform the song Bat Out of Hell on the Old Grey Whistle test, and she said, I want to work with whoever wrote that song, and that was a guy named Jim Steinman. At the same time that this singer, Gaynor Hopkins, aka Shireen Davis, aka second stage name that she was more well known by, was doing that talent competition in Wales, Jim Steinman was at college in New York writing a rock musical that he called The Dream Engine. This college rock musical actually led to him getting to audition for Warner Brothers in 1972, but the audition went horribly. After the audition was over, an executive at Warner Brothers said to Jim, I have to say this bluntly, we don't need people like you in this world. So with his career in the record business stalled, Jim goes back to New York and goes back to public theater, and he's working on this musical called More Than You Deserve. Now this show is not at all a success, but this is where Jim meets this singer named Marvin Lee Aday, who is better known by his nickname, Meatloaf. Now Jim and Meatloaf start working together and they start writing songs that would become the album Bat Out of Hell. The problem is, no record companies have any interest in Meatloaf or in this album. Jim and Meatloaf spend years trying to get a record deal. In the meantime, they pay the bills by doing stuff like touring with the National Lampoon Show with John Belushi and Bill Murray. Finally, they do find a tiny record label to give Bat Out of Hell a chance. It's released in 1977. And it becomes one of the best-selling albums of all time, selling something like 40 million copies. Meatloaf becomes a huge star. Jim Steinman also releases a solo album of his own called Bad for Good. And the Welsh singer is a huge fan of his solo album and his work with Meatloaf, so when she signs her deal with CBS, she brings in Jim to work with her. And at first, Jim Steinman says no. At the time, he's not really interested in working with a pop singer, but she sends him some demos of some more rock and roll songs that she's been working on, and he finally agrees. Now he gives her a couple songs right away that she likes, but it's not until a couple weeks into their partnership that he presents her something really special. It was kind of this half-finished song he had been writing for a vampire musical. It was originally going to be called Vampires in Love, and it had all these themes of light and dark, stuff for a vampire. But now he finishes the song specifically for her. He brings her over to his apartment in New York in 1982, and there's this Canadian singer there with him named Rory Dodd, and they play it for her together, and she loves it. They go into the power station in New York to record it. It's recorded with some members of Bruce Springsteen's E Street Band. Also, Rick Derringer is on guitar, and Rory Dodd, who originally sang the song when Jim and him were presenting it to her, he ends up singing on the track too. And And what's really crazy is that one of the lines that Rory Dodd sings is a line that was originally in Jim Steinman's college musical, The Dream Engine. It was a line that had to do with nuclear war, but it kind of fit the vampire theme too. The line was, "Turn around, bright eyes." And the song was Total Eclipse of the Heart, sung by this Welsh singer Gaynor Hopkins, aka Shireen Davis, aka Bonnie Tyler, a stage name that she had picked by picking out names at random from a newspaper. Total Eclipse of the Heart was released in the UK in February of 1983. The single version, which had been cut down from Jim Steinman's epic 7 minutes to 4 minutes, sold 6 million copies. It became Bonnie Tyler's first ever #1 hit. There was a music video for Total Eclipse of the Heart directed by the Australian director Russell Mulcahy, who would later that decade direct the greatest movie of all time, Highlander. Funny enough, when it was #1, #2 was a song by Air Supply called Making Love Out of Nothing at All, which was also written by Jim Steinman. And Bonnie Tyler's Jim Steinman produced album, Faster Than the Speed of Night, became the first album by a woman to debut at #1 in the UK. Jim Steinman would have success with Meat Loaf again. He also wrote and produced I Would Do Anything for Love, But I Won't Do That. But for a few years in between, there was a feud between Meat Loaf and Jim Steinman. One of the things Meat Loaf was mad about was that Jim Steinman gave Total Eclipse of the Heart to Bonnie Tyler and not to him. But Jim said that Total Eclipse of the Heart was never intended for Meat Loaf. It was written just for Bonnie Tyler. It was written specifically to showcase her powerful voice. It was the song and the hit that she deserved.
Falling apart. There's nothing I can do, a total eclipse of the heart.